All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to grade 8 coding. It is the 30th of July today, and we are looking at if else with B, puzzle 7 to 13. Now, obviously, we're not limited to that, and we don't have to necessarily keep it there, but we'll see what we can do. So before we get going, I just want to check. Okay, awesome. I'm going to quickly check. I received a lot of your emails, right? So I want to actually read to you just off the top of the list, not through all the names, from Natalie, I just want to see who else is here, whose names I might miss, from Klandla, and the list goes on. So if I missed your name now, don't worry. If you did send an email, I probably got it. Those were for the assessments that you did yesterday. So thank you so much. I did receive them. I will have them all checked and ready by the end of the weekend. I did explain to you to check coding home assessments or homework. It's not just a matter of taking a memorandum and quickly making a few red checks or crosses on a piece of paper, right? I have to physically go and read each sequence of code written. So you can imagine I have received at this stage 25 emails, 5 puzzles each. The puzzles aren't the same between the 3 classes, so you can just imagine it's going to take me some time because there's more than one way to do things in coding, and more than one way can be the correct way to do it. So we are, however, tomorrow going to work through those puzzles and we will take it from there. Right. So my name is Mr. Paul de Klerk. I am the senior phase coding teacher for STEM Digital School. If you are joining us on the YouTube channel, you are welcome to head down to the video description box below. You'll find links there that you can register to come and join us in class. There are a few ground rules though. The chat box is there for you to answer questions, to ask questions, and then for me to share resources with you. It is not there for you to come and chat with your buddies while we're having a lesson. And it is also not there for people to try and communicate with each other privately. So if you do receive a private chat from somebody, we will not ask your contact details, right, from the school side. So neither myself nor the host will contact you privately asking you for an email or for a telephone number using the chat. If we need that information, we're going to use the official channels from the website through the newsletter to reach out to you, your parents, okay? So if someone's asking for your details in the private chat, that's not from us and you should not share it, okay? So another thing, right while we're on this, the hosts are making all of this possible. If it wasn't for them, we would not be able to do the work that we're doing. You wouldn't be able to attend classes. So I'm going to ask you to please respect the host and treat them respectfully. They act in a way that they have been asked to by the school, right? There are some things that they have to do to help the classes run smoothly and also to keep everyone safe in this online space. So I am going to ask you, and I'm going to tell you as well, if I find out that any one of the students in my lessons are being rude to the host, then I will summarily remove you and you will have trouble getting back into the lessons. Okay, you are welcome to then contact me privately via my email to find out exactly what's going on, but I will take personal offense in that, okay? Without them, these lessons cannot happen. So I give a big shout out to them and for the work that they're doing. I see the work that they do behind the scenes. All right. The next thing is, please don't share, switch on your video cameras. It makes it difficult for me to see the content. I don't generally have issues with that on the older phases, but yes, just don't do it. Okay. And then lastly, there's something else. Oh, just the links, right? I share the links. Please don't share it back. If somebody enters the meeting late and they want the link, they can just ask me for it and I'll share it. Okay, perfect. I think we have our ground rules set up, so let's get going. Here's a quote from a lady by the name of Maria Culver, and she says, coding is today's language of creativity. All our children deserve a chance to become creators instead of consumers of computer science. So, okay, that's enough now. We have established that it is the afternoon and you have had a chance to greet each other. So let's keep the chat clear from now on. Thank you. So as you know, coding isn't just one segment. Coding isn't everything there is to computer science. It's just one segment. Along with it comes engineering and design and robotics as well, okay? So I really love this quote. The reason for it is quite simple. I am not an artist. I'm not good at drawing pictures. I'm not even good at coloring in pictures, right? I've never been good. I cannot create a beautiful piece of art on a canvas, but I can code, and coding gives me that way to create something. Like when I build a website for somebody or for myself, I am creating something, so I am being creative, but it's within a frame and a structure that my brain can process. So I have a creative outlet, but it is based on rules and logic and conditions and things like that, right? So for me, coding has been a great outlet of creativity, which I didn't have before I had the ability to code, because before that, I only knew creativity as being making beautiful pictures, right? Another thing that I fully agree with is that we should become the creators instead of the consumers. So consumers are just people that get the information, they take in the information, they use the things, and they take in the information. But if we are creating this computer science realm, we are basically shaping the future, right? Because in nowadays, technology and computer science is involved in everything, and it's the medium with which information travels the most freely. So with us being creators, we actually can have the opportunity to shape a better future for all by using our skills and our creativity to create something using computer science. Massive platforms have been built using computer science that have brought families together, that have helped to eliminate crime. A lot of things like that, which has been created using computer science. So that is where we are headed, and we have such a big up on anybody who only learns how to do these things once they are in adulthood. Okay, so Maria Calva, she is or was the president of Harvey Mudd College, I'm not sure, but she was one of the first, or not one of the first, but she's a great activist for coding amongst women. Traditionally, coding was a male-dominated industry, and that has changed by no small part due to the work that she's done. And she's so involved that she's actually on one of the board of directors, not necessarily directors, but one of the boards for Microsoft. So she is serving on one of those boards, and she's doing great work. Okay, let's get into the coding. So terms to know: conditionals, if-else logic statements that change the way code is executed. So we've seen this 1,000 times before. And what it basically says is if we place a statement, and the program will try to execute that statement, regardless of whether it is the correct place to do so or not. It is going to try and execute. Okay, Natalie, no problem. I did just receive your email. As I said, I will check it all. Sorry for answering publicly. It's just easier for me to talk than to try and type it back to you. I will only have it checked by the end of the weekend. So there is a grace period for you. No problem at all. Thank you for telling me. Okay. So just so everyone knows, Natalie accidentally sent her stuff yesterday to the wrong email address. So she redid everything today and sent it again to the correct email address. That's why she said that. So for those of you that might have realized, oops, I sent it to the wrong email, or I sent the links instead of taking screenshots, you still have time. As I said, I'm only going to be able to go through everything and have it checked and marked and graded by the end of the weekend. Okay, so don't stress on that. Just do touch base with me and say, teacher, here it is, and then I can have a look at it. Awesome. So the next thing, conditionals, statements that will try to execute regardless of whether it's going to work there or not. However, if we place it in a conditional, now we have the opportunity to let the program check before executing. Okay, so it's going to give us that opportunity to change that, the way that it executes. The next one is variables. Variables are placeholders for information that can change. So sometimes variables are values that we've set and they get used as a constant, meaning they get repeated over and over, but we're using them in different statements. So it's easier to just set it in one place and then reuse it where we need to. Another option is that variable can actually change by putting it through an equation, and then each time a loop runs, as an example, the variable can change and it can grow and it can become more as is needed or less. Awesome. So let us get into this. We are looking at conditionals in B. And there's a lot of these flowers and honeycombs because that's what we're going to be doing. Now, let me jump to my coding screen over here. And I'm going to find that I called it conditionals in B. They call it if else with B. Doesn't really matter. An if else statement is a conditional. So that's fine. We're going to jump off from puzzle number 7. Okay. Right. So up to this point, I'm first going to just clear that and share the link with you. At the end of this meeting, I'm going to type my email address in the chat box for you. Okay, then you can just get it from there. It's paul@africateamgeeks, remember the S after geek, .co.za, right? But I'll show it to you at the end and I'll type it into the chat box so that you can be sure that you've got the correct one. Okay. So now we have, this is obviously review. So previously we've done all those lessons. Now we're just going to continue from this on. It says, now I just want to make honey. So before this, we've done the flowers and honey. Now we just want to do one of them. Some of these clouds might have honeycombs under them. Be sure to check if a honeycomb is hiding behind each cloud. If there is a honeycomb, the bee will only need to make honey once. So from this, there are a few pieces of information that is important. The first one is check, right? We need to check whether it is there or not. So because it is telling us to check, we know that there is a possibility of more than one outcome, okay? So once the bee moves here, there is a possibility of more than one outcome. Now here it says the bee will only need to make honey once. So now we know that there is only a possibility of one of two outcomes. So either there will be one honeycomb and the bee will have to make honey once, or there will be no honeycombs and the bee doesn't have to make honey at all, right? So that is two pieces of information that really makes our work a lot easier. Okay. Secondly, we need to understand that there are honeycombs and not flowers, so we're going to make honey. So this is a very straightforward one. We're going to move forward twice. We're going to check for a honeycomb. So we'll say if at honeycomb, we want you to make honey. And then we're going to turn left. And then we're going to repeat that twice. Okay. So if you are new, you could have tested this first, but I think most of you that are here, this is not your first time. Okay. So something to take notice of, when the bee started moving, there was nothing here. Run it again, nothing, run it again. Now there is something there. Okay. So this is why we have to use this if statement. So the if statement is saying simply this. When this condition is true, in other words, if you are at a honeycomb, then you make honey. But this one doesn't allow it to check every block. It is checking only that single block that corresponds to the sequence where we placed it in the sequence. Okay? So remember now, when we want this to happen on every block, it's going to look something like this. Okay? And it's going to be 1, 2, 3. So we're going to have 3 of them, and this will have to change. Okay, I will do. Right? Just do it now so that I don't forget. Yes, I did. Thank you very much. I did receive it, Lesedi. Awesome. Okay. Yes, I'm also excited. I can't wait to check what everyone has done. Okay, so just to get back to this way we can check each block. Okay. But we don't really need to check each block because this is not what this puzzle expects of us. So you need to understand that you need to make sure that your code has been created in a way that it is actually going to do what you need it to do with regards to how you sequence the code. Okay. Think about where you want what to happen and make sure that you run it that way or create it that way. Perfect. I'm moving on. I think that was easy enough. We're not watching videos here. Right, so now it becomes a little bit more tricky. I'm just going to take this away. Right. Sometimes a cloud covers a flower, sometimes it covers a honeycomb. Use the if-else block to collect nectar at flowers and make honey at the honeycomb. Remember, if there is a flower, the bee only needs to get nectar once. If there's a honeycomb, the bee only needs to make honey once. So there's a lot of information here. Let's make sure we understand that. So we have to use this block. That's what they want us to use. They tell that, that's fine. So the first piece that we need to understand is nectar comes from flowers and honey comes from honeycombs, okay? I know this sounds very basic, and it is very basic, but once you take this idea onto a higher, more difficult concept, you'll understand why I want you to start practicing it at this moment. Now remember, if there is a flower, the bee only needs to get nectar once. If there is a honeycomb, the bee only needs to make honey once. Okay. So again, we have now identified that under that cloud, there can be only one of two outcomes. Either there will be a flower with one honeycomb, or there will be, I'm lying, there will be a flower with one nectar. You see there, I got it confused. Or there will be a honeycomb with one unit of honey that we need to make. Why is this important? This block can become quite the problem. If, for example, one of the options here would have been one of three, it would have had a flower with a nectar, a honeycomb with a honey, and nothing, then you wouldn't have been able to use this block. Why is that? Because this block says, if at the flower do this. Okay, so that's still the same as the if that we just had, right? Not this one, this one. But what it is saying is else make honey. So if you are not at a flower, make honey. It is not checking if you are on a honeycomb before it says make honey. It is purely saying if this is false, do this. So in essence, what we are saying is this. I'm going back here just to show you. That if-else block works the same as this. This is going to try and execute that code. Doesn't matter what is there. It's going to try and execute that because we told it to. The else block does the same. Now it's going to be back to, no. The else block does the same. So if this is true, this will happen. If this is not true, this is going to happen. Whether it can happen or not, it is not for anything. So if this block is empty, then you are going to receive an error. It's going to say you cannot make honey over here, right? So I showed you earlier when we used the if block for the flower and we tested it on the empty spaces, it just moved on if there was nothing. But look what happens when I run this on an empty space. You can only make honey at a honeycomb. It doesn't complain about the get nectar because this will just move on if that is not true. But it complains about the make honey because we are now telling it, you must make honey. Okay. So it's important to understand how this one works, and that's why it's important to understand what the outcomes behind this cloud can be, because you need to account for that when you are creating your code. So now we are fine because there was a honeycomb, so it worked. We run it again, there's a flower, it works. Okay. So in essence, what happens is it moves forward, checks for a flower. There's a flower, get nectar, and it's done. Or move forward, checks for a flower. There's no flower, it will make honey, whether there's a honeycomb or not. But we know that there will be a honeycomb because they told us that. But it is not checking. Okay, does that make sense? Are you happy? Can we move on to the next puzzle? Okay. Right, so this one I've answered already because we've done this already. So I just want to talk through it so that we make sure we understand why we chose that. Look carefully at the code below. What do you think will happen after you click run? Remember, there will only ever be one honeycomb or one flower behind each cloud. Again, this is important. Each cloud can only have one of two outcomes, right? And that one outcome of the two can be a flower with nectar, or it can be a honeycomb with honey. There will not be nothing there. So it's saying repeat 3 times, move forward, and each time you move forward, also run this repeat block, execute this repeat block. Okay? Not the repeat, the conditional, sorry. So what do we have here? Move forward, if at a flower, get nectar, otherwise make honey. That's fine. We know that will work. This one, same thing. This one, same thing. So the bee will get nectar at each flower and make honey at each honeycomb is obviously the correct answer. Okay, does that one make sense to you? Can we move on? Awesome. So I chose to spend a lot of time reviewing conditionals. The reason is not only will we use conditionals in the future, but we are also going to start using conditional repeats. You've done that already, but they can get quite tricky. So we need to make sure that the base foundation is built correctly. There will be either a flower or a honeycomb under each of those clouds. Collect nectar once if there is a flower, otherwise make honey once because there is a honeycomb. So again, we have now, let me just do this quickly to make sure everyone has access to this. Okay. So again, we have that situation. There can be only one of two outcomes under each cloud. And now, because you've told me previously that you understand, I want you to code this. So in the chat box, type the code that you want me to place on the workspace, and we can do this together. Move forward, always a safe bet, yes. Move forward times 2. Okay, sounds like a good idea. Times 3 sounds like a better idea. Awesome, then what? Remember, if you want me to test something, you write the word run, and then I click on run, and then I can test it. Although I don't think you need to test anything on this one, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, if else, get nectar, make honey. Turn right. Okay, I'm going to pause this right here. If we run this, we'll see that it works perfectly. But we have a bit of a problem. We've only solved one, but we are already on 8 out of 8 blocks. So first we need to find a way to make this shorter, because we already know that we're going to repeat this 4 times, right? So we know we're going to add this in there 4 times. Now we are 1 over. And yes, that's the way to do that. We're going to repeat this move forward 3 times. And we're placing that inside. So now we have a nested loop. And we're using only 8 blocks because of the nested loop. Okay, awesome. That works well. I have a question for you though. If I place this here, will the code still work? Yes or no? If I place the turn right before the conditional, will it still work? Yes or no? Okay, some are saying yes, others are saying no. One way to find out, run it. And the answer is yes, it does still work. Let's understand why. It's very simple. You need to understand that this is still running sequentially. But the turn and this is happening on the same space on our maze. So it doesn't matter which one we do first. However, the code will be executed in this way. So if we do this, we're going to turn, as you can see, and then collect. Turn and then collect, turn and then collect. If we do it this way, we are going to collect first and then turn. There you can see that happens before we're turning. Okay? But in effect, the code is still working. So how do we decide which one is the better one? We don't. For this, it doesn't matter. If you're creating a game that certain things need to happen in a certain way, then it makes a difference. But for this, it doesn't make a difference. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? Are you happy? Can we continue? Awesome. Okay. Collect all of the nectar or make all the honey. You can only collect nectar from flowers and make honey from honeycombs. Check any space to see if there is a flower or a honeycomb. There will only ever be one flower or one honeycomb behind each cloud. So again, we've realized, excuse me, we've realized now what the 2 conditions can be, or 2 possible outcomes, either a flower or a honeycomb behind each cloud. Now we just need to code it using that logic. So what do we need to do first? In the chat box, you can type to me. If you are a slow typer, do not get discouraged. So you can still type it out, and I will read it, even if we've moved on to the next puzzle already. But it helps me greatly when many people answer, because then I have an idea of what your level of understanding is. Okay. Awesome. So I've received a private message, and that looks like the correct code. Just want to see if anyone else submits any ideas. Okay. So there are some ideas that have been shared. Let's have a look at them. So this is a pretty easy one. We can start with the repeat because we don't have to practice the sequence beforehand. And we can run it. And it's working. So well done to everyone who submitted code. Now my question to you is, if I change these 2 around, will it still work or not? No, it will not. Awesome. There is, however, an easy way we can fix this. The toggle. How about now? Will it work now? Yes, it will. Awesome. Very, very good. Can we continue to the last puzzle? Don't worry, we will not end our lesson just like this. There are a lot of puzzles that we can touch to. Okay. So here is a different application for the same idea. The concept is the if-else conditional block. The previous problem was we didn't know what is going to be under each flower, or under each cloud, sorry. In this one, there isn't a clear pattern. So you can't use a normal repeat as we would have done in the past. We also only have one make honey, and we only have one get nectar. So you can't, as an example, say, move forward, make honey, move forward, get nectar, and repeat that 1, 2, 3, 4 times. That's not going to work because this pattern is broken here, right? You can see there we have 1, 1, 1, then we have 1, 2, 1, 2, right? So the same one's repeating. So we can't use a normal repeat block here. So if we are sitting with this situation, we have the same information as what we had when they were covered under clouds. We still know just by looking at the workspace, there can be only one of two outcomes. The outcome cannot differ. And there is only one at each one of them. Okay. Yes, we are doing exactly what we did in the previous puzzle. Exactly this, yes. And we're doing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times again. So the entire sequence just is a replica of what we had earlier. So type in the chat box, left or right. Which one do you want, left or right? The one with the most votes is the one that we're going to do. There's 1 for left. 1 for right. 2 for left. Only 20 more seconds. 2 for right. 3 for right. 3 for left. Okay, no, wait, but somebody's voted twice now. Just count here. Okay, voting has closed now. Let's tally the votes. So there's a left, left. Okay. So right is the predominant winner because I did receive some private messages as well. If we have time, we'll do the left one as well. Okay. Now look at this. Use this loop to collect all of the nectar or honey from one flower or honeycomb. Ooh. Isn't that interesting? I myself haven't even used this before. So let's see. Collect all of the nectar to make all the honey. The link, sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. Collect all of the nectar and make all the honey. You can collect all of the nectar in one flower by using the while nectar is greater than loop. Okay. So let us practice this first and just test how this one works, right? So we're going to move forward. Yes, we are actually not just reviewing. Okay. So we're going to move forward and get nectar and just leave the settings the way that they are. Run it and see. Okay, it collects one, so we're fine. Now, what I want to do, I know it's wrong and they're going to tell me that I can't do it this way, but we are going to place this here. It'll still run even though there's an exclamation mark. What happens when it's on a 3? Okay, so what is this saying? This is now your first introduction actually to variables, although you've done variables before. So it is saying as long as there are more nectars than the value 0, you need to keep doing this. If there are 0, then you're not going to do this. It's going to skip. Okay? And you can see that you can change this so that if the value is lower than or if it is equals to, you can also change this here. Exactly. Just like a while block. It's exactly the same. Okay. So this is saying while there are more nectars than 0, that is a greater than sign, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the names of these signs, but I know how they work if I see them. So just bear with me. If there are more nectars, if this one is bigger than that number, continue. Do what is in the loop. Once this is not bigger than that anymore, then the loop will stop. Okay? Now there's another way that we can do this. We can either repeat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And then this will also be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we can set this to 6. Okay. And then we can say move forward and do this. Now, something you need to understand of all while loops, right? It's not just this while loop. Any while loop. There you can see the while as well. It is also an if. It is going to check for a condition. It's not only going to act out while this is true, it's going to check whether the condition is true as well. So you can use a while loop on an empty space. Okay. So let's say we want this to turn right here. And then we want all of this. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. Because over here, we have to do honey, right? So this is another move forward. And now this time we set this to honey. And we say make honey. Okay. Now let's run this. So if this while loop, try replacing this with a value. Oops, I do that very often. Right. So now we will see whether this while loop is going to give us an error on an empty block or not. And you see it doesn't. It just continues past that. Now let's say you are like me. Not that I'm saying you're a lazy person. Maybe you just like doing things the other way. But I am lazy. I'm self-proclaimed lazy. So I'd rather use this than count. Because now I know I cannot make a calculation mistake. So what that one says is while there is a path ahead, you do that, right? It's one of the ideas that somebody sent through here in the chat. While there is a path ahead, then you are going to do this. And there you can see those small black lines that looks like a Wi-Fi signal almost, or Wi-Fi symbol at least. It is checking for a path. Now, the moment that that condition is not true anymore, the code runs to whatever's next. It'll try to execute whatever is next. Awesome. Let's see if we can get back to that other one. I'm not sure if we can. Sometimes it doesn't want me to do the other lesson extras. Yes, now it's doing exactly that. That's what I was worrying about. Let me just do this quickly and come on. refresh the browser, and run this through. Say continue. Allow me to choose the other one. Awesome, this one here. Right. Collect all of the nectar and make all of the honey. You can only collect nectar from flowers. You can only make honey from honeycombs. Check every space. So this is now going to be a very good example of why we will not use this one. Okay, and I'm going to show that to you now. Again, if you use an if flower and you check each block, even the empty blocks, you won't have an issue, because if there isn't a flower, it's just going to continue on to the next code. But if you use this and you tell this to get honey, it's going, or make honey, it's going to try and make honey everywhere where there isn't a flower, even on the empty blocks. Okay, oh, the link. To make it easier for you. There we go. Right. So now you need to also pay attention to the fact that we are standing on a flower already. And then you need to try and find a pattern. So with this pattern, I can already see it's going there, then the path ends. Down there, then the path ends. Over here, the path ends. Up there it ends. Here it ends, and there it ends. So we are going to use the while path ahead repeat. And we are going to say, if at a flower, get nectar. If at honeycomb, make honey. So we are using these two because now we are checking for both on each block. We are not checking for one and then forcing the other one to happen. We are saying, check for this. If this is not true, check for this. If this is not true, just continue to whatever comes next, which in our case is this. Will actually be that. So if you run this, you'll see we are not getting any errors on the empty spots. If it is on a honeycomb, it just collects the honey, no issues, right? Then we're going to turn right here. And then we want to repeat this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we loop all of this into a repeat 6 times, including the turn right, because we can see there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turn rights. This last one will be a waste, but that's okay. And now we can run it. And we will be good to go. And it'll go and go and go until the puzzle is finished. You can watch paint dry in the same time that it's going to take this bee to run through this, or grass grow, whatever floats your goat, you can do that. But we're almost there. Oh, we didn't make all of the honey. I'm not going to run through this entire thing again. I don't have the patience for that. You just need to add this make honey in there, because once the repeat is done, we're standing on honey, which we cannot account for within the loop. So we just do that, and then we're fine. If we repeat this one more time, we end up here, we're going to turn right with this. So we are going to move again, and then we're going to miss this, because then there is a path ahead again. So the easiest solution is the simplest solution. Just place a make honey block there. Okay, awesome. I'm not running that entire code again. I'm just going to carry on. Tomorrow we are going to do the assessment review, but please bear in mind, you will not necessarily have the results of your assessments back by that time. You will have the ability to just correlate yourself how you think you did, okay? So you can check tomorrow, how did it go by yourselves, and then by the end of the weekend, I will give you the results back. Easiest was question 3. Okay, we'll check. Oh, the Angry Birds one. Awesome. Right. So if you have any questions, there's my email address. I said that I would type it. Let me just type it in the chat box as well. Right. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.